Y'all, he just gaslight Christ and said the reason why it's okay
I
for
said
him
I
to
was
be
taught-
narcissist. Hold on, Nick. Okay.
The definition of a broken home, because just even the term broken sounds like something that was once whole is now not able to function.
So let me clear this up. A broken family can be more traumatizing than a broken home. The fans read also, he kept asking the age, because I'd already said as long as a man has no kids.
Right.
And he seemed very triggered by me saying a man with no kids, because that meant not him. And he deems...
Did you pick up on that?
Well, yeah, I picked up on that. And he deems me as being the kind of, aesthetically, woman that would have been, say, his type.
Once again, it's an honor, privilege, and a pleasure to be in a safe space, in a brave place, where we're not canceling one another, but counseling one another. We feel together, we reveal together, so we can heal together, as we always say. And backed by popular demand, after setting the world ablaze, the internet storm, and making sure everyone is high functioning. The one and only Dr. Cheyenne Bryant.
Thank you, Nick.
Yeah.
You know,
we got to hug it out just so the world see
know.
that we love each other.
You know, shoot.
No, I mean, the world. I mean, it's funny because, like, I think obviously once we sat down, people were talking, they were engaged, they were excited, and then
which is the purpose of this platform we have. So it served its purpose.
Yes.
Great job.
Thank you. Likewise, so much. And then obviously you went across the waters or across the country to my brother Cam Newton and sat down with him, which I thought was another phenomenal conversation. And I mean, you really laid it down there, and I think it made it even more clear. And I think based off of y'all discourse, you know, more people even got engaged in our content, and it became the topic of all social media on many different levels. And so I commend you on, you know, all that you've been doing and how, and like now I see you everywhere. And tonight's conversations and television. You already always been on television. I mean, all the stuff that you had, you know, previously done and with like MTV and various spaces. But even now, I mean, your name and now your mantra and your pedagogy is touching global horizons. So I think it was only right for us to, I mean, we was always going to sit down because of our relationship anyway.
Right.
But I think now this low functioning, high functioning conversation is,
and the high value, low functioning conversation.
Yeah, because and that's another thing too, the difference or the distinction between high value, high functioning, low value, low functioning. Because I think those terms get thrown,
they get mixed
up, and
Absolutely.
then people get, you know, offended or may not have full understanding. So we're gonna clear up all of that stuff. But I definitely wanted to just check in with you and see how you've been, because again, I think we're in a different space from when the last time that we sat down.
We are.
So you good? Everything? How's life?
I was really good, and I am extremely good now.
Yeah.
You know, internally, I am a house that has a lot of God's peace and a lot of joy inside my home, meaning myself. And so I carry that everywhere I go.
Yeah.
So that can't be taken because it's mine, right? And what's yours, people can't take. And whatever you bring to the party, you always get to enjoy. So you're not codependently waiting for somebody to bring your joy, your peace there.
Right.
Okay? And so for me, I'm very happy. It's been an uproar. And like, you know, just my DMs on fire, my emails on fire.
Personal DMs or business DMs?
Both.
I think like even one of the ones we posted about, you know, getting married, and so people was hitting me like, I'll marry her. I was like, all right, she over there turning up.
Next, like, but she's high functioning. Can you handle it?
Exactly.
But no, it's been really good. I'm now on a speaking tour all the way up until next year, January 2025.
Wow, that's dope.
My book, Mental Detox, was already the bestseller, and it is now reselling and becoming the bestseller. So that's
and I'm pretty
amazing.
sure we got a new book coming, high functioning, low functioning, or something.
You know, I got to start that one, but the new book is called The Wilderness, and it talks about, it kind of uses Noah's journey as a metaphor for freedom, and then get into the Red Sea, it's splitting. And then when the Red Sea splits, you end up in a wilderness for 40 years. And from there comes the promised land. But the wilderness and the promised land not being a destination physically, it being a mental and an emotional space that you will yourself in.
Okay.
And so we can be in any place we choose to. We cannot be in both because they can't coexist. And so like for myself, I'm in the promised land because I choose to. But there was a time where I was in the wilderness as a result of my dysfunction, as a result of my inability to manage pieces of me. Because, see, we don't change, we shift. And so when we shift, we still have to manage the parts of us that don't serve us. And so am I still the little girl who has abandonment behaviors that can inflame? Yeah. But the woman in me manages the hell out of her. And so unless I give her permission to come in and do what she does, and she comes in with finish him, she doesn't. And that's because I've healed her. I have a relationship with the little girl in me. And I realized from just her showing up in past relationships that there was no place for her, because she would come in and sabotage. She would come in and bring in ideas and arguments and insecurities that I didn't have as a woman. So I was dealing with a duality of myself, which many of us are dealing with, the duality of the little girl, little boy in me and this adult in me. So I'm evolving while I'm growing, right? But also I'm grieving the parts of me I'm leaving while I'm celebrating the parts of me that I'm evolving into. And that's a hybrid situation in itself that a lot of people get stuck in.
I'm so glad you said all of that, because I mean, even obviously, we are a slave to the comments, and I
Don't be.
I definitely want to dive into, because there's just so much inquisitive conversation about who you are, and the fact that when we get to hear about that in the wilderness and where you came from and how you got to be so high functioning now, and kind of speaking in such a way that you know what you want, you know who you are, and you're also willing and ready to help individuals who are working through some stuff. So I love it all. Can't wait. Dr.
But I gotta
Bryant,
say,
go. No, what you gonna say?
I was gonna say really quick. I gotta correct one thing. I'm a hybrid.
Okay.
Meaning I'm high functioning, but I also am able to facilitate low functioning, because the low functioning parts of me are what I manage. And when I can't manage the low functioning parts of me, I have to have a partner or circle of wealth. Circle of wealth are friends. Has nothing to do with money. It's the things that are most valuable, which is your friendships, your family, your support system. Money can't buy. That can also facilitate me when I happen to dip low. So there's no such thing as being 100% high functioning, because then you're a robot and you're not human, right? And so it's about having the balance of, I'm high functioning enough to not personalize you when you have a difference in opinion. Not personalize you if you're my husband and there's things you want to do that I don't understand, but since I chose you, I trust you, I'm rolling with it, right? So I'm high functioning enough to say, baby, I don't know about this, but I'm going to roll with you because I trust you to take us to the promised land, but I trust me to have our back in case we end up in the wilderness. But when my low functioning parts come out and I go from, can we talk about this? Or I got to set a boundary to, excuse my language, y'all, who the fuck you talking to? You understand, wait a minute, baby. Baby's in her low functioning. We both hybrids. Let me facilitate her here, but let me not dip low with her. So now we're at war. Now we're at war. So I'm a hybrid, y'all. I'm not perfect.
I'm a hybrid too.
We're working on that, Nick. We're working on that.
I'm a hybrid too, because look, like Dr. Bryant came through bearing gifts.
I brought in his daily affirmations, y'all. This is his daily affirmation. No
low functioning behavior allowed. This is a no low functioning zone. This is for healing. This is for conversation.
And they can all get that on my website.
Talk that talk. You see it?
We have that.
Let them know where it is.
We have that sweater. We also have.
Dr. Bryant got merch.
I'm trying to tell you, but we also have high functioning as fuck.
See, why you didn't bring me the high functioning fuck shirt?
When you get there, I'm going to get that one.
Okay.
In the Dr. Bryant Institute High Functioning Academy, I'm going to gift you with that, with your diploma.
So let's dive into this conversation, this high functioning, low functioning, high value, low value. Because even as you just put it to it, like the hybrid, that's a good answer. I like that, because then that's more accepting, because a lot of people thought some of the conversation that we were having was judgmental on both ends. You know what I mean? When I think you were just expressing an ideology,
right?
And in that, even people were really not understanding the definition of it in that sense, to where you're almost saying like where you are in your current life, that you are better than other individuals, and specifically even geared towards me,
Right.
of like, and a lot of people were agreeing with you when just say how I'm low
Unfortunately.
functioning, and they were, and they were, terms of obviously like narcissistic, behavior, and the all of the syndromes that we know psychologists and psychiatrists can diagnose you with. But I would love for you to clear up, in this setting, even the purpose of speaking to the issue at hand, and labeling it and understanding it so you can grow from it.
Absolutely. So high functioning is just a person who's able to identify their emotion, i.e., I'm mad, I'm frustrated, I'm pissed off, right? I'm angry.
I could do that.
Okay. And then not allow that emotion to turn into them being in their feelings, because feelings cause problems, emotions don't. So high functioning goes, I'm pissed off, I'm mad, I'm frustrated. Okay, so then what's next, Doc? All right, so what I really want to do is I want to go in on this person. I want to curse them out. I want to put my hands on them. Whatever you want to do. I want to leave. I want to sabotage. Like, I'm just ready to flip this table over.
Right.
But high functioning says, all right, so how do we code switch that? What is the message you want this person to receive from all of those dysfunctional behaviors? Okay, I just want Nick to understand there's a boundary he crossed. And that boundary is something that triggers me. And because I love and respect our friendship, I don't want him to cross that boundary anymore.
Right.
So high functioning just means I come to you and I've already processed before I produced a statement to you. I processed within myself. And I said, look, Nick, this is how I feel about it. That was a boundary you crossed. The next time I tell you something, I like it to stay between us. I want to be able to trust you as a friend because I love you. Right. You know what I mean? I don't want it to be not a safe space with you. Can you commit to that? Right. That's high functioning. Low functioning is I'm frustrated, I'm mad, I identified it. And then I say, you know what? Fuck this. Right. What you did was out of pocket. Right. You need to take accountability. You ain't apologized. You've been doing this shit for the last 10 years. Right. And I'm about to just go ham. Right. Because I can't regulate my emotions. So what does that mean? That means I'm in my low functioning space, which means my pain, my dysfunction, my trauma is now in a conversation with you. Right. Not my healthy self. Right. My healthy self is saying, I do want this relationship. I do love you. You are my boy. Right. I want to work this out. I don't want to give up a 20-year friendship. Right. You made a mistake. I got compassion. I got grace. Can you just not do it again? Right. And that's disarming you. And from that, most people are going, all right. Yeah. No problem. So but low function means we at war. Yeah. So we at war. It's a level of managing and maintaining your emotional intelligence. And the clinically correct term is regulating your emotions. Right, Can you regulate? Right. Because we don't change, we shift. So I want to go to the other end of the spectrum, because I have been diagnosed with a narcissistic. You been clinically diagnosed with that? Yeah. Okay. But when I did get diagnosed with it, because I have no problem with it, it's a spectrum. You know what I mean? And I think even it starts off with like confidence, overconfident, arrogance, and then that's when you step into the space of narcissism. And in that, there's markers. And when someone has like extreme narcissistic behavior disorder, it has things like the lack of empathy, rage, all of those things. I don't have those. Like I was just going to ask you, how many of those symptoms do you identify with? Yeah. Like I identify with all of them except for those two. Except for the rage and the... Yeah, I have no rage, and I have, I'm very empathetic. And, I believe like that's just nature. You know what I mean? Like my grandmother taught me to learn behavior for you. Yeah. Right. Like I probably, if I was a kid where that was fed, I probably... So where do you see yourself as narcissistic? Well, I'll give you a few things, because I even want to get back to even when you were talking about high functioning and low functioning and regulating one's emotions. Like, I've never experienced that, because I'm such a runner and have abandonment issues and stuff, that when conflict approaches, like, I'm a Libra, I'm out. You know what I mean? Like, I'll just disappear. That's the way you will see me not regulating my emotions, because I just don't deal with it. Yeah, you sabotage. Yeah. I'm out of here. I'm out. I'm out of here. So... all the other things when it comes to
narcissism.
But that is narcissism.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Okay, got it.
What is it? Is it self?
Absorbed?
Not self. Yeah, self-absorbed, but self-importance. Where I believe that
self-centered, self-absorbed.
Because I grew up in a.
So your self-care is on steroids.
Yeah, I grew up in a Christian household where I could do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Right.
I am a mover. I'm a shaker. I'm more than a
okay,
conqueror.
Nick, I'm about to go there.
But I'm just telling you,
but not about to gaslight Christ.
I'm not.
Stop, Nick.
I'm not.
Because you said because you grew up in a household
in me
where
lets me know that I am anointed. What is
you can
Christ?
do all things through Christ who strengthens you.
I am anointed.
You took that.
When I walk in a room,
went overboard.
I am a light.
You cannot gaslight Jesus Christ because he told you that, and now you're telling him because he told you that.
I am all these things.
You're the king and you miss the narcissism.
I am abundance.
No, you cannot do that. No.
I'm doing it. I'm owning it. I'm walking
Don't gaslight him.
In the kingdom that I am.
Because Christ gave his life. That's the most unselfish thing you can do.
100%.
So you cannot.
And I would give my life for mine.
You cannot.
I would die on the cross for my kids.
Narcissism, whose extreme selfishness and self-centered. Not saying that's what you are, but that's narcissism. And Christ, who said I could do all things through him.
There's a self-importance in me. There is. I believe I am not ordinary. I am extraordinary. I am the head and not the tail. So why did you just gaslight Christ? I did
Answer that question.
I'm telling you. You said I did that. I'm quoting scripture.
Y'all, he just gaslight Christ and said the reason why it's okay for him to be narcissistic. Hold on, Nick. Okay, he gaslight Christ and said because he was taught he can do all things through Christ that strengthens him.
Absolutely.
Is the reason why everything can be about him. Is the reason why everything can be world revolving around him and no one else matters. That is not
I never said no one else matters. You put words in my mouth.
That is not what Christ has said. And y'all don't allow him to gaslight Christ with that, okay?
We'll take I apologize if you believe I have gaslit Christ, because that is not what I'm doing. I'm talking about how I was raised
and what you were
and
taught.
My understanding of my self-importance.
So let me ask you this. How do you think you took, now we're being serious, how do you think you took that learned behavior, right? I can do all things through Christ, meaning I'm powerful, I can do things, I should believe in myself, I should have a belief that's as big as my God. I get that.
Yeah.
How did you take that and catastrophize or expand to a level that you deem yourself, because you said you see it as narcissism. And really quick, the reason why I asked you, do you deem yourself or feel or see yourself as narcissistic is because a lot of folks have diagnoses that they are not. So just because they're diagnosed with it, they learn what it is. You obviously research it because you know it well, and they start to identify and clothe themselves with those symptoms when they are not that. So there's overdiagnosis and underdiagnosis. And in our community, particularly, I like to make sure that we are not labeled with things that we may have a symptom of, but we are not the actual diagnosis of. Because I have a lot of clients who have been labeled as depression or narcissistic or anxiety disorder when they learned in the household how to be depressed, what anxiety looks like on their parents. But they're adults, and if they unlearn that behavior, that's not who they are at their core. I'm not saying that you're not narcissistic. I'm just saying I like to check in with that to make sure, do you really see yourself as that? Or like you just said in the household, did you learn through Christ you can do all things because you have the same power he has? So is it a learned behavior or is it how you're built? Is it really you?
You're teaching you, because it's funny that you say that, because I have, obviously I've been attempting to do the work on myself and have a lot of therapists and people who speak into me, and it's so interesting because there are a group of therapists that are like, oh no, you check all the boxes, you 7 out of 10, so we're gonna go with that. But then I have others that's like, no, you're not narcissistic at all. You may have some tendencies, you may have some behaviors, but all of those are learned, and you can, through this process, we can work through it. And then ultimately what everyone says is that I can get to that high functioning space with the willingness to do the work, with the openness. And as we know, the first thing is acceptance
100%.
Of saying like, okay, I have to, and taking accountability.
But acceptance of the reality, not your perception. A lot of people have a disconnect between their perception and reality.
Right.
what we do as professionals, psychology experts, mental health professionals, we bridge that gap for you so that we get you into seeing the reality of who you are, not to judge you, but to say, does this reality serve you? Is this reality better than your perception of you? Because your perception was formed by your experiences. So maybe your perception is what's eclipsing you and keeping you from that high functioning or from that healthy self. Or maybe your perception has worked as a protectant of your reality because your reality is just too bad for you to live in or to look at. And so we have to look at, as a professional who's seasoned, you look at both. And until you assess both and you and the client equally together as a team, figure out which one is it.
Right.
Because as an expert doesn't mean that I have the right to completely project onto you my expertise. I cannot expert you without you being all the way in this with me. That's not how it works. So I can't just tell you. That's why I said, do you feel? And when I talk to my clients, I say, listen, do you feel depressed? Which one of these things do you identify with?
Right.
Right? Let's see where your reality is based on your perception.
Right.
So that they can live in that and they understand who they are.
Right.
Because remember, we have to be in acceptance and surrender to how we're really built and how people are really built. Not in what we choose to believe.
Right.
Because just like that's tea. If I said, Nick, that's tea and there's a tea bag in that it really is, and you keep saying, Doc, no, this is Diet Coke.
Right.
But you keep it in your hand. As long as you keep it in your hand, it can be Diet Coke.
For me.
For you. For you. But as soon as you take a sip, and we all take a sip of who we really are, and we all take a sip of who we are with or whoever the other person is at some point. And when you sip it, guess who the one who's disappointed? Guess who's heartbroken? You.
Right.
But did I break your heart? Or did you? With your illusion and your ideology that you covered that with.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's important for us, just everybody, it's a human right to have a mental health. But specifically in the Black community, listen, I'm not going to coddle. And we got to stop making false narratives to make logic for bad decision making. If the decision is a bad decision that's resulting in something that is impaired or not healthy, then we have to call it what it is. And we have to stop living in these false narratives that say, I'm creating broken homes everywhere, but everyone's getting this $15,000 check a month. But that doesn't make the decision okay if those kids are still in a deficit.
So let's talk about that, because I think that's what we do. We have this broad stroke when we're painting with these terms.
But do we? Who's we?
There's triggering terms.
Okay.
Like that's like I've taken all the power away from the term narcissism because I've researched it.
And I love that about you. Yeah,
and I'm
totally.
Like, call me whatever you want. Like it's one of because I've actually taken. Now, if I didn't know what it was, then I'd have issue with it. Even as we have fun discourse where I talk about everyone from Jesus Christ to Steve Jobs to Rihanna to Beyonce to all of these people to Kobe Bryant to LeBron.
As a narcissist, you actually would do what you did with it.
Yeah, exactly.
So as a narcissist, you don't have an issue with it
at all, and that's what narcissists do.
You stand on. You're like, listen,
I'm proud
I am
to
this,
be me.
and I am that, and I am this, and what? That's a narcissist.
That's
and now that part of the narcissist,
right?
I don't believe is unhealthy. That part is a part that I believe.
As a people of how we've overcome so much.
There you go. So that's not the part of the narcissist that says, that's the part that I actually admire. Take out the narcissist diagnosis I admire about you, is that you stand on, 12 kids, 12 babies. Yeah, narcissist. Yeah, this is what they say. So how about, look, I'm going to throw it out there. What's next? I'm going to catch what I want coming back, and I won't catch what I don't.
Exactly.
And that's what I believe has become your survival mechanism that's worked for you.
Facts.
But also it's become something that I feel is a very healthy protectiveness for you. And it's not wrong. That's not a bad part.
And in therapeutic settings, I mean, I can be vulnerable and let it out to where I know the things that pain me as well. I know the things that about me, like, man, I wish I could do this better. Or, man, I wish I wasn't in this scenario. But in that, and going back to the other term that's been thrown around quite a bit, which I still struggle with. It's not triggering to me, but I struggle with the term because of how society defines it. And I talk with Ayanna Vincent about this, about the term broken homes. And even in our setting, she had an interesting take on it, which I appreciated and brought some warmth. But even in the comments were there, they were like, "Oh, she's being too easy," because she personalized it about her upbringing and her, and I think she kind of just leveled the playing field with saying, even with a 2-parent household, we all come from broken homes. And I appreciate her maternal and matriarch approach of it's like, we all need help, we all need therapy,
100%.
we all need counsel. But even in your conversation with Cam, I felt like he was triggered a little bit by the broken, and I've been in those settings where, in the all you doing, I don't like you because you creating a bunch of broken homes, and it's like, wait, what? I'm just trying to be the best father I can be. I'm just trying to make the best out of the situation that I did create, but I'm still trying to step up. And whether the amount of money that my
let me
family's
correct you. You're
received,
not trying to step up because I see you personally doing it. You do step up. So let's not say you're trying.
Right.
You do. You run around this whole damn world. You do. You've left sessions of us here to run off to go pick up your baby from school. I've witnessed it. So I'm just saying it's not try, you do. So I wanted to correct that. But continue.
No, but that's what I think, because it gets all housed in that. Because what then comes with the broken home term comes deadbeat dad.
Remember, broken house and broken home are two different things. But
Very
I'll explain
true.
that after. Continue.
But because what's associated with it, and I'm only speaking to terms right now, because we know how, when we're really doing the work, it's more than these terms.
100%.
You know what I mean? And it's ultimately about the babies and the family. But when these terms are being thrown at, it attacks the character, which then attacks the ego. But so then you get broken home or broken house creator to deadbeat. And then, deadbeat is because whether it's the action.
But a deadbeat father is different than a man who's creating a broken home.
100%. But it's almost like
they're combobulating it.
Yeah. Okay. When just if you're going to label me, if you're going to attempt to define me, and all of my decisions, all the things that I'm proud of and the things that I'm not so proud of, it gets
because you're saying the one thing you are proud of is that you are not a deadbeat father.
Right.
For sure.
Right. And I'll even go to the space of, and I want you to break it down a little bit more, just for clarity purposes for myself and for the audience, of the definition of a broken home, because just even the term broken, sounds like something's not working. It also sounds like something that was once whole is now not able to function, or is in two parts or multiple parts.
But that's not a broken home. But I want to hear what you're saying. When you hear it, that's what you think. That's what you associate to it. Got it.
Yeah, so because from what I believe your definition, you'll share it in a moment, what a broken home is, it's another thing that I'm not running from, because it's not traditional. It's not the nuclear family of a male and female in a home that is raising a child.
Or let's clear this up, because you have a lot of people with different dynamics. It doesn't have to be a male and a female.
Or a 2-parent household.
2-parent household.
A 2-parent household. But even in the comments and even a lot of those conversations, because I've seen this conversation come up amongst our peers, and even outsiders will talk about, well, are 2 men raising a child, is that considered a broken home? Or 2 women raising a child, is that considered a broken home? And a lot of people think that. Or one able and capable person who chooses to say, I don't want a partner, but I want a child, is that a broken home? So there's so many
different dynamics.
Dynamics, but even going to the space, because when we hear terms like broken, we think low functioning, we think low frequency, because of that term of ultimately just being non-traditional. And as we know, a child needs so much, but ultimately it's rooted in love, is what is love, which then comes attention, compassion, care, nurturing. But it has to start there. And there are people that believe that they can do that solely by themselves. And there are people that are functioning in that manner. So when we hear this term broken home, it triggers many, because we're talking about a lot of these people that are currently sitting. And one thing you and I have talked about off camera before is that the both of us, come from broken homes.
So I come from a broken family, but not a broken home.
Please,
so
tell
I
us.
grew up in a 2-parent household, right? With a grandmother and a grandfather, to your point about the different dynamics of the structure of the parents being in the home. A grandmother and a grandfather. I'm a product of a 15 and a 16-year-old parents who had me as teenagers.
Right.
So they're off to school, and my grandparents are at home raising me.
Very similar.
Right? Exactly. So I grew up in a 2-parent household, which means it wasn't a broken home. However, the family, because there's a difference, was a broken family at times, depending on our level of trauma or dysfunction. So let me clear this up. A broken home is a single parent home. That's one woman, one man, one human. It doesn't matter your sexual preference. It doesn't matter if you're 2 men, 2 women, a woman and a man and a dog, whatever. If there's one human being in that home, it's called a single parent home. That is a broken home. A broken family consists of a 2-parent household, but that family is so dysfunctional and impaired that they are not functioning to a healthy space.
Right.
That's what that means.
Right.
So a broken home can be more traumatizing than a broken family can be more traumatizing than a broken home, depending on what's going on in that home. If you have 2 parents in the home and, God forbid, the father is sexually abusing the kids, then, and your only choice was a broken any kind of abuse, but I'm going sexual abuse because that's so intense, right? But if I had to choose between a broken family with that and a broken home where that man is out of my house, give me a broken home.
Right.
Get his ass out of here, right?
Right.
So this is not about better or worse. This is about making decisions that create the healthiest environment for everybody collectively. And when you did not make that decision to create a healthy environment for everybody collectively, it's about realizing you're not doomed, but you first got to sit in what you created so we can recreate and unlearn and relearn, which is called reprogramming, something different.
100%.
Something different.
Yeah.
I came from, I came from a 2-parent household, and I seen my father, who has 6 of us by 5 different women. He was creating broken homes.
Right.
But he was an amazing freaking father.
Yeah.
But for me seeing the broken homes, although we all blended so amazing, I always said, I don't want what he did. And he would mimic to me, baby, don't do as I do, do as I say. Because daddy doesn't want you with a man who is doing the things that I'm doing.
We talked about this, what I will tell my daughters. Because I don't want my daughters
and you
kept
it real like my father, which I think the biggest blessing is having a father or a parent who can say, listen, I created 7 houses, they all homeless, but there's money in them and there's time in them, but they're homeless. But this house over here that I live in, we got a home. So don't know how you're going to process it, but I'll see you next weekend. I don't care what no one says. That's fucked up.
Absolutely.
Okay?
They're gonna have to deal with that. There's trauma.
That's my point. I came from a blended family. I was the oldest. I love all y'all 6, okay, but we know it. For the most part, I was his favorite, you know? So, he probably told us all that. I was his favorite. And what I'm saying is that kept me fed.
Right.
But when he had 2, my beautiful little sisters from his wife that he passed away and left behind, although they would say in front of them, well, Darren, everyone knows Cheyenne's your favorite. Right. And I would come over and run the household just to show I was the oldest and the favorite, and everything would move in my direction.
Right.
But I still left sometimes and went, dang, that's cool. They get to grow up with dad in the house. Yeah. And you know what he would do while I was there? He would overcompensate by making sure everybody knew when big sister's here, don't interrupt when daddy's talking to her. But you know what he was saying to me? Baby, I feel you. Yeah. And I get you.
Yeah. And I'm sorry.
And I'm sorry, Nick. So let me overcompensate. Yeah. Because you didn't get this. Yeah. And then he would have real conversations that would go, dang, baby, like every time daddy sees these little girls, I just think about how much I missed out on growing up in the house with you. Yeah. One thing about him, he was real. Right. He didn't hide from his emotions.
Right.
He came out with it. Yeah. You didn't get this, but I wanted this.
Right.
Things just didn't go right with me and your mom. We were high school sweethearts, but you didn't get this.
Right.
And I would say, Daddy, it's all good. It's cool. I get it. You know, you're doing the best you can. What you saying, but with your kids, I'm doing the best I can.
Right.
But did it sometimes make me feel some type of way? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And I felt that way I'm 42. I felt that way at 41 when he passed away. Right? My little sister's living in the house while he's on his deathbed. They get to wake up with him every morning. We only live 15 minutes away because we were so close. Right. But I drove over there in between sessions. Right. Just to be there with him. So what I'm saying is, it doesn't matter what logic you want to create or what you want to tell yourself to feel better about your decisions. What you should be telling yourself is, okay, I made these decisions. Let me figure out how it's affecting my offsprings. Let me figure out how it's affecting the people who I want to be able to grow up and make better decisions. And what does that conversation look like? Because I really feel like me not being a fatherless little girl and my father telling me, drilling it in my head, don't you bring home any man that looks like me, smells like me, acts like me, does anything like me, and he better not be from the streets. Yeah. It stuck in me. Right. And I dated a street guy one time. My dad said, let me see his picture. And I showed him the picture and he said, no. Right. Don't bring him around here. One of us going to end up dead and in jail.
Was he from
and
the wrong
don't do
set?
Actually, it was from the same, not set, but the same, affiliation per se. Right. And he just said no when he called me Nick every day for 2 weeks. I'm not exaggerating. Right. To drill it in my head. And obviously I ended up letting that go and he was right. But I say that to say a broken family can have more trauma and more impairment than a broken home. So this is not about, am I better or worse? No, it's about, is what you doing serving everybody collectively?
And that's the purpose of us being here. You know what I mean? Is to understand that. And even as we define these terms and we get clarity on it, it's like taking the accountability for who we are and what we are. Because like you said, we have very similar upbringings to where, my parents were teenagers. My grandparents, specifically my grandmother, was the matriarch and, still is to this day. Yeah. And even, my grandfather, they were married for 50 plus years before he passed. But even still witnessing how he maneuvered with the family and the understanding, and then watching how he fathered my father and how my father fathered his other children, and same scenario to where there's times where I'm just me and my mom, or it's, me getting to live a couple of years with my dad as his oldest, but there's already an established family where he has a wife and kids, and they all got the same mama.
They have a home.
Yeah,
and you were coming over.
Still, those ideas of like, to this day, I love her dearly. It's my brother who's sitting over there. It's his mom, and I struggled with what to call her. Right. You know what I mean? It was it Miss Lynn? Was it Mama? Was it? I didn't know, because it was one of those things where my infrastructure is completely different than my other siblings. Yes. And even to this day, it's so funny that, we all grown men, but we be like, yo, how your dad? How's your mom? You know what I mean? Just because we never was, it was, or my dad or my mom, where it's like, instead of just dad broken, or just mom. Yeah.
And y'all were blending.
Understood.
My brother and 100%. I grew up in the same household. Yeah. We ain't asking them questions. Right. He traveled. You met him last time we were here. He travels with me everywhere. Yep. He has a key to my house. Yeah. My home is I have the big mama home. Right. We're closer than my other siblings. Not that that's how I want it to be, but I work a lot harder to make sure I'm keeping the glue with the other ones.
And the idea is, how do we all, as humans, as people who are, in community, how do we become the most high functioning individuals that we can possibly, with all of the baggage and trauma and messiness that our families create? So we've created a conversation that has lingered in,
and it has our community doing what they need to do. Thinking, looking at themselves, taking inventory, questioning if what they're doing makes sense. Yep. And hopefully what they're not doing is comparing themselves, but they are, and that's okay, because contrast usually brings you in, right? The Bible says wide is a road to destruction, narrow is a road to happiness. Mm-hmm. Contrast helps you get to your narrow road, right? And so we have our community finally, because what I love most, Nick, I've seen so many Black men of all ages, tagging me, DMing me on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, going, you know what, Doc? I'm 26, 4 kids, 4 different women. Doc is right. We got to create more husbands and less baby daddies. Let's have this conversation. Let's take accountability, men. Get into therapy, get into coaching, get help. And when you see counsel culture and the culture getting counseling from conversations like this that most people don't want to have because they don't want to take the backlash of you're a deadbeat daddy or you a single woman with no kids, who are you to... We're shifting the whole culture.
Absolutely.
And this is what it's about. And we're cultivating, we're being fruitful, but this is what it's about. These young men are saying, I want to do different. And I want to say this because it's important. No matter what decision you've made, you are not doomed. You're not doomed. That just means for you to sit back, okay? Life is meant to be lived like this. This is a surrender posture. Not like this where you're clenching in fear because I made these decisions and I got these kids, or I've been to prison, or I've done these things, or I'm highly traumatized, I'm dysfunctional, I'm diagnosed. No. Surrender to that. Accept the reality of what it is. Figure out what tools you need to get where you want to be, because you're going to have to learn to go broken. You're going to have to learn to go narcissistic. You have to learn to go depressed. You're going to have to learn to go as a father of 5 by 4 different women, or a woman who's single with 1 kid, or a man with no kids. It doesn't matter how you go. The point is 90% of what you need to do is showing up for yourself, getting the tools, applying them, because knowledge is not power. The implementation of knowledge is power. So no one's doomed. That's what I want our culture to know. There's no such thing as you're too fucked up. It's where are you?
Right.
Because God meets you where you are. But if you hide and don't want nobody to know the address, we can't find you. And the address is just the accountability. Yo, Nick, I have FUCK'd up.
Right.
That's my address.
Yeah.
And I need to figure out how to get out of this. And let people know you need help. There's so much power in just getting help or saying I need help. These men come in session, they're like, Doc, I ain't gonna lie. I'm fucked up. I don't even know where to go from here. Like, just tell me, like, is there any way that I can change? And I laugh, and they're like, and I'm going, yeah. But before we do that, is where you at working for you? Because if it's working for you and the outside chatter is telling you something different, then let's run these plays. Let's run these plays. Why are we running outside plays if that don't work for you?
And that, to me, it goes back to where, like I said, I'm happy, I'm content with the life I have, and then that then gets labeled as more narcissistic behavior. But I think because, like you said, we're having these conversations, and there's so many people that are a part of the conversation. I as we wrap this session up, I actually want to show you someone that I admire, that I believe also admires you, and that spoke so highly of you, and is another voice of the culture, and often has controversial talk in this space, but had an interesting clinical approach, is Dr. Umar Johnson, who is sitting here, and like I said,
I love him.
He considers you, a warrior in the fight of mental health, and wants to sit down with you. I told him we're gonna have to have a counsel culture when we sit down in our roundtable settings. I gotta have you both on together, so when we have our panels. But he was moved and intrigued by our conversations and the ones with Cam, and he has some interesting thoughts. So I want you to see and respond to what you think. He has a full session, but this one important because it's exactly what we were talking about.
Nice.
In Dr. Cheyenne's conversation with Brother Cam, he said, my fear
is bigger
of divorce
is greater,
exceeds my desire for marriage. And he said, and I may be paraphrasing a little bit here, that he was taking his time to find the right woman to build with.
Well, he has a woman.
And Dr. Cheyenne, rightfully so, saw that as a contradiction, and she went right in.
Right.
And she said, paraphrasing, how can you be patient about looking for the right woman, but you're impatiently making all these children with unmarried women? In other words, if you're going to take your time and find a woman, slow down and take your time with impregnating them as well.
Right.
To that point. I understood her point. Now here's where the irony comes in, and I'm going to bring it back to you for a question.
Right.
Cam Newton flipped it. And he said, okay, you're evaluating and criticizing the fact that I have 8 children by 3 different women.
Right.
and I still want more children,
Right.
even though I'm being patient in finding my mate.
Right.
But you're 41 and haven't had any children. To what can we attribute your behavior?
Right.
Here's the irony. Her answer to Cam was exactly Cam's answer to her. She said she was taking her time. So I'm looking at this as a psychologist, right?
Right.
And then Cam comes with another question. He says, what age or how young can your potential mate be? She mentioned 26, 27. I said, as a therapist, bingo. I said, I know why Dr. Cheyenne Bryant isn't married. Dr. Cheyenne Bryant has a fear of abandonment. And the reason why a 26, 27-year-old spouse possibly would be appealing to her is she could parentify herself in that relationship where she becomes the mommy and the mate. And in being the mommy and the mate, I'm able to coddle my young partner. And in doing so, I get to control his behavior, therefore preventing the abandonment that I fear. When I looked at her conversation with you, you asked her the same question as well.
Yeah.
Well, what about you? And she talked about how she almost jumped the broom 4 times.
She's been engaged 4 times.
So once again, my therapy lights went off, and I said, here it goes again. The reason Dr. Bryant never managed to jump the broom on those 4 occasions is because her abandonment issues that she honestly put out there are so strong that she has a tendency to want to over-control her mate as a means of preventing the abandonment. And in her over-control of these men who do not want to be over-controlled, she either pushes them away or they leave of their own volition because they don't like the manner in which she wants to control the relationships.
What do you think about that?
I love everything he said. Everything he said. Only one correction, then I'll go into what I love about he said. One correction. I didn't say I would want a 26-year-old man. What I was saying to Cam, because he kept asking the same question,
Right.
and I was reading behind his question, which the fans read also. He kept asking the age, because I'd already said as long as a man has no kids.
Right.
And he seemed very triggered by me saying a man with no kids, because that meant not him. And he deems...
Did you pick up on that?
Well, yeah, I picked up on that. And he deems me as being the kind of, aesthetically, woman that would have been, say, his type back then or now if he was single, because he's very much with his mate. And a man of high value can get whoever he wants, because you said that too.
Right.
But when you're sitting across from a woman who's high value and high functioning, and who would be, and I say this with humility, but I'm just going to say, who would be the poster card, the perfect woman per se, no kids, good looking, she's a doctor, she's educated, has her own stuff.
Right.
It's telling you, no, you couldn't have me. And she's not just saying it, hold on, her no was not a no, her no was like, absolutely not. And I'm not saying it to get you to hunt me. I'm saying it because I'm nowhere in your jungle to be your prey.
So did you purposely say that to him to
no, he kept
make
asking
it affirmative?
No, he kept asking. So
I'm not interested in you?
No. I was just saying, I already said a man with no kids, meaning if the man is 45 or if he happens to be 30 and he has no kids, or if he is as young as 26 and he's mature with no kids, then I'm not going to say no to a 26-year-old with no kids, but yes to a 45-year-old with kids.
Really?
Really. And I understand that I would rather have patience with a younger man than have to have my values be dissipated and shattered with the man with kids, because those are values. It's called preference, which we all have a right for preferences. But let me tell you where I do love what he said.
Yeah.
Because he put the head up with a nail, the head on the nail, whatever. He was on bullseye on X marks the spot with what he was saying. in my low functioning behavior. So remember I was telling you I had my own space of being low functioning in relationships, that I did a lot of work, and I still do a lot of work to maintain it. And I said I'm a hybrid. And now I am a very high functioning woman who manages my low functioning behaviors and parts that don't inflame half as much. Maybe out of 100%, they inflame maybe 20%.
Right.
What I like that he said was she gets into these relationships when she was engaged multiple times, and because of her abandonment, and abandonment is just the insecurity of being left. Love that he said that. She goes into over controlling, being dogmatic, being domineering, to, which is an illusion, control, not the man. That's the only part he was wrong at. Her feelings of abandonment. Because I'm not controlling you. We're all just controlling ourselves. We're never controlling anybody else.
Right.
We're controlling something that activates in us that we don't want you to activate. Right. So I was controlling this person from moving anywhere off the mark. Because abandonment people need you to stay right here. Right where I left you, right here. That's not reality. Humans move. Humans change. Humans evolve. And I had to learn, which is what he's saying, how to get out of that low functioning behavior of, I need you right here. Because if you move a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, I'm going to freak out.
Right.
Because that may mean, that movement could mean abandonment to me.
Absolutely.
So I had to work through that. That's where he's correct. But it wasn't in my mind to control the man. It was to control what he would activate in me based on his movement or behavior. Now, when I say I'm high functioning, we had this conversation earlier about me dating in my dating space, and saying, Nick, I love that I can be traveling doing me, and if I'm dating a guy, he's traveling and doing him, and we find that intimate time to be together.
Right.
I couldn't do that 10 years ago because of what Dr. Umar said. My abandonment hadn't been worked through enough.
Right.
What I love about dating and having been single for 6 years and doing my work is, through my experiences, I get to feel my growth when I no longer get any anxiety over the guy I'm dating moving in any way he wants to move. There's so much freedom in that.
Yeah.
And that's why I say to people, if you're in a space that's unhealthy, all it takes is one. I had to take self-inventory. I had to say, what the hell am I doing? Because I was having two things: attachment anxiety in relationships, meaning if I feel unplugged from you, anxiety, right? We unplugged, Nick. We unplugged. I don't know where you're at. Or if I didn't have control over you, my abandonment, the little girl in me would say, oh, this is about to be short-lived.
Right.
Oh, wait a minute. If you can't control it, it's going to be uncertainty. Last time things were uncertain, you were abandoned.
Yep.
So you have to identify and be in your reality that that's what you do. And once I got into that and said that's what I did or I do, I was able to look and say, okay, God and my therapist, how do I undo this? Because back to what I said, because this is not serving me.
Right.
Now, if it was serving me, I would have kept rolling with the punches. Let me go to one more part to wrap up. The other thing he said was either the control of me controlling my abandonment activation, not the men, but in his words, the men were either pushing the men away or they were leaving. This is what made it really hard for me to change. Not one of them was leaving. Hold on. Hold on. Let me go here. Hold on. Let me say this for the ones who are watching. Hold on. And all of them have attempted to be back, still attempt to be back, and would like to be back. But let me say this.
Exes too.
I believe you. But let me say this. I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying that to prove a point. That's what enabled me. That's why in our session that we had, our first few sessions we had, when I said, or with Cam, I think I said, a woman setting a boundary with a man who's dysfunctional not only serves her, it serves him. Because her leaving makes him think, what happened here? Let me take inventory of her and of me. They wouldn't leave. They facilitated. They facilitated my dysfunction. They facilitated whatever I came with. They still put a ring on my finger. They still wanted to be married. They still want that to this day.
Right.
It was good for me in that position.
Right.
But it wasn't healthy for me because all it did was positively reinforce my behavior.
Exactly.
So there was no consequence.
Right.
So what I had to do was get in the mirror and say, to Dr. Umar's point, this is the second wedding and the fourth engagement I called off. How do I plan on staying in a marriage forever? Even if it's only 15, 20 years. If the moment that my abandonment's inflamed, I go to control so that I can get a hold of really me, but it's you in the relationship with me.
Right.
And you're letting me control you. But at some point, I sabotage because there's no level to control. Meaning, when you let someone control you here, guess what? They raise the bar to here. And they raise the bar to here. And they raise the bar to here. So there was no level of control any man could have let me have that would have dissipated my abandonment. That's a self job. I had to detach, get in contact with what the hell I was doing.
Right.
And then come back and say, if that happens,
Right.
this is how you facilitate me. If this happens, I may need more reassurance. But I've done enough work to where I got to regulate myself. Me and a guy I was dating had a disagreement. He had already apologized. He already took accountability. And I felt myself. And this is actually just a year ago. I felt my abandonment inflame. And I was still upset. And I was still mad. And he had already did everything. It was over, Nick. The conversation's over. What he apologized for wasn't even a big deal.
Right.
And I maturely said to him, I said, baby, listen, you've done everything that you were supposed to do. Right now, it's my responsibility to regulate myself. Give me 30 minutes or so. Because I have to make a cognitive decision to let this go. It ain't you. That's what high functioning is. It's baby, you did. Baby, you did your job.
Me.
No, that's narcissism. That's different. That's different. But you know what I mean? After he shows up, now it's up to me to say, I'm going to lock in and move past this.
Right.
But our trauma, our abandonment sometimes will make it to where we can't. And if we have the awareness, we can shift it, and I regulate it, and then we're able to get back into our peace.
Well, I mean, I'm glad that you broke it down that way, because I feel like we got to unpack it some more. Obviously, this session has been a long one and a great one, and we've got a chance to catch up. We got a chance to hear your side, my side on many different things. But I think we got it in our next session. We got to dig in.
We got to go deeper.
And I think even digging in deeper with you, because that's helping so many others, because of someone that we put on a pedestal or that we admire, that, you know, speaks to the high functioning individuals in each of us. We want to hold everyone accountable. So, because what also Dr. Umar said in that interview, and, you know, probably at this point, everybody's seen it at this point, is that he bunched me and Cam and you in the same personality archetype or functioning of, and it was, you know, some narcissistic behavior tendencies that, and what he made the statement, and I think whether he said in that clip or other clips, that we attract who we are.
Despite of who we think we are.
Yeah.
He's just teaching law of attraction.
Yeah. So in that sense, in our next session, we'll unpack some more about, you know, those ideas and then personalize them.
Yeah.
Because it goes back to what we said in this one, is just accepting who we are, taking accountability, and then holding that mirror up so everyone else can take their own.
And being in your truth.
Yes.
I know we're ending, but like this.
Yeah.
Dr. Umar, listen, if he's speaking truth, I got to say I love what he said. And then I have to be able to identify with he's talking about what I did do.
Yeah.
And he said the 4 marriages being caught off, or weddings being caught off, is where he was able to assess this whole abandonment thing.
Yeah.
And he's right from where I was.
Yeah.
And so you got to let a duck be a duck. And you can't personalize when people are telling your truth.
Right.
Say, you know what? That was me at one point.
Yep.
And I've worked through that.
Yeah.
You're right. Next subject.
And that's
What's
how
wrong
I
with
feel.
that,
You
though,
right.
right?
Next subject.
Right?
So we're going to get to the next subject. Please like, subscribe. I know the comments are going crazy. And we're going to get to it in our next session of Counsel Culture.
Next session. Let's do it.